Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. What's up?
Oh, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I'm good, man. Lot going on.
There is a lot going on.
Pretty chill day yesterday, like off the grid. So it's all good in the neighborhood, man. How are things?
I'm doing all right. Got a little boost from Coach Rhule yesterday.
Yeah.
In his press conference for it's kind of funny. He has this way of almost, I mean, you've mentioned this before.
Okay.
That you think one of the best qualities Coach Rhule brings to the table is his discernment.
Oh yeah.
His ability to quickly process a situation and have a good answer. Maybe not the best answer that he give himself a little time, but he'll get 90% of the way there almost instantly.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
Right? And we saw that Wednesday night when he puts out the "So God Made a Farmer" video, right? Unbelievable timing on that thing. Like almost instantly after Trev is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And the dude's in Scotland, by the way, while this is happening. So from Scotland, gets this video made. I'm not under any impression that he's out there like using CapCut and doing stuff himself, but like gets this video made from Scotland, drops at the perfect time. And then you have yesterday, right? A lot of consternation, a lot of frustration, myself included, of why Trev left, the reasons. Is it an institutional problem? Is it a Trev problem? Is it some combination of both, which is likely the case? And you've got Rhule there going to the podium, and I would guess 99 times out of 100, that's a press conference about spring ball, about the end of winter conditioning. We got a little bit of that, but he didn't talk pretty much any football. He talked about all the other stuff, and his ability to kind of, I don't know any Nebraska fan that didn't feel better yesterday.
Yeah, he's an amazingly quick blinker.
Yeah.
Right. Especially somebody I kind of pride myself on being able to react and process quickly. Like it, I enjoy doing that. He's really, really good. And I don't know if so much yesterday I felt it was kind of twofold. Because I told a couple of people, I was like, this is exactly what I was saying last week. Right. So I don't know if that's why I liked it. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, that's not why I liked it, because I wasn't sure. I just think, like in crisis, and I would call this crisis management, right? And maybe crisis is a little.
I mean, contextually, it is a crisis, right? We're not trying to pretend that it's
the ability to lead under duress. Okay. It just was so measured, and I struggled last week, and I said it again yesterday to Sam. The reason why last week was so hard was because, like, we wanted to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And I was like, nah, I gotta slow down. Like, I think we can eat the meat, right, and spit out the bones. And the meat of it was, he did a really good job while he was here. Did a lot of good things. I think his job was extremely difficult, right? Like we did, this isn't like because Coach Rhule said it. This is in addition to, and even some of it was even before, right? But then to hear Coach Rhule yesterday say, because I know it's hard, right? It's going to be a friend of mine. Appreciate Angela reaching out to, Julie. It's a hard business, a lot of moving parts. And I'm telling you, like, the more, we're going back and forth with the conversations and stuff yesterday on, was that group text?
Yeah.
I don't think he was I don't think he was talking about his boss. He used his boss's name a lot and referenced the position. I think he was talking about the institutional matters and the position as he envisions it, right? Because this is what he's about. This is what I want. I want to be able to go to work. This is where I want Nebraska to be. This is the position I want them to be in. Because at least right now, I always tell kids sometimes, like, I can't be your biggest fan.
Mhm.
You ever coached a kid and it's like, I can't want this more than you.
Mhm.
That's what I feel like a little bit of what he was saying yesterday was. Listen, I'm in this deal. I am in the deal, fans. I am in the deal, media.
Mhm.
Let's get this right together. I want this to be huge. You have to want it too. You got to want this. You got to want a solid infrastructure. You have to want a visionary. You have to embrace the leadership role. You have to embrace being the University of Nebraska. You know, stop with the tail tucking and backstabbing and the whispering. We have one of the greatest things that he said is kind of what I was saying yesterday, right? We have an opportunity to really get this thing right.
Mhm.
So let's roll your sleeves up and go to work.
To me, it's something that he's talked about a lot. You talk about the you don't want to have the tuck tail, and it's almost
Dude, we tuck. We do a lot of tucking as a fan base. And we hedge. Don't hedge.
well, yeah, and it goes back to this thing that everybody says when when they talk about whether it was Frost or Rhule or whoever, and they talk about wanting to be a winning program again, wanting to be nationally relevant again. And then what's the next thing you always hear?
It's gonna take time. It's got a long way to go. We've
If you're a fan, I'm not saying it's going to be like the 90s.
yeah.
There's always the qualifier, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Right? That's hedging. That's saying, well, like, listen, I know it's never going to be like it was before.
Mhm.
Right? And listen, it's not. It's a different landscape of college football. There's 12-team playoff now, going to be 14, 16 soon, right? This is a landscape of college football that is 100% different than what was going on in the 90s. That doesn't mean, though, that you should hedge your
The expectation level.
expectations, or
And
even
he's talking. You're right.
or even hedge your vision.
You're 100% right.
Right? It's not even just the expectations; it's hedging the vision before you even get to the point of expectation.
He said it 1,000 times. I told you when he was at the high school talking to CJ
Mhm.
or Christian Jones, sorry, and he was talking, and it's probably after about 30 minutes, he goes, and make no mistake,
Mhm.
we will win at the highest level.
Mhm.
I don't know when that's going to be, but we're going to win at the highest level.
He said that since the day he got hired.
So he's never ran from the expectations. And if he's going to embrace it, I don't see why we can either, because we act like
Well, there's actual tangible consequences for him, and there's not for us. I mean, really.
we act like being the head coach or these positions in the sports world are somehow different than in real life because of monetary situations. But that's not really the case, right?
Mhm.
There aren't a lot of people that get out of bed and say, "Hey, you know what? I want to be mediocre today."
No,
Or,
but there are a lot of people that get out of bed and say, "I just want to get through today."
"Hey, well, 100%."
You know.
Right? But that's why there's tiers of the job qualifications, right? Usually the more unique skill you have, the
More you get paid for it.
the more you get paid for it.
Yeah.
So those people on high ends of pay scales are uniquely equipped to keep moving the ball forward,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, and getting through the day doesn't mean you don't want the best for those around you.
Sure.
You just have a hard time rationalizing where those two worlds collide.
Mhm.
So it's like, man, I sure do want my kids to be average. Hey, just get through today.
Mhm.
Just get through. Like, that's not typically a message you're hearing. So don't assume like it's bad or out of character or unattainable or whatever. Like, if coaches want to win, because I think that's part of it.
But it is part of it, and I have to say I appreciate, because he's setting himself up for a way where he has to deliver.
Yeah.
Right? But he's not afraid of that.
No.
That's you see a ton of coaches that say, "Hey, we're going to get this thing right. We're going to win whatever." You're like, "I don't know what that looks like." Or they have some sort of qualifier in there, right? To say, "Well, I don't know exactly what that looks like." And I guess he has some sort of a qualifier. He goes, "Hey, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen." But honestly, I don't think we allow ourselves to think that way
Mm.
because we're afraid of the failure. If you say it out loud and you tell everybody, this is the thing that I want, then if you don't get it, people know you failed. That's how we look at it.
One, and I agree with you. Shane, when you sent the clips, did you send the 3 group text or just to Ravi and I?
It was a 3 group text.
Okay.
Because, I mean, and I was like this until I was 30 years old, where I wouldn't say the thing I wanted out loud. I wouldn't even admit it to myself because I was afraid that I wasn't good enough. That's really what the fear of failure is. It's not the actual failure. It's that our minds tell us after we fail, oh, that means you're not good enough.
Yeah.
That's what we think failure is, a condemnation of us as people.
Shane, play clip 4 for us from Coach Rhule along the lines of what Ravi's getting to. Let's play clip 4 for us.
Through what could be seen as a tough time. But I mean, I think this is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. Everyone's going to wonder why Trev left, and that's his story to tell. I don't know why. I know he was very forthcoming with me and very forthright with me, and I have no complaints about the way he handled anything, at least with me. So very grateful for him. But this is an opportunity for us to look at everything within our athletic department, everything within maybe even our university, and how can we be better? Because this is an amazing place. And I started off by talking about my son being here. I would not send my son here if I didn't think it was an amazing place. My wife's opening a business down in South Point. We would not invest our money in our futures in a place that we did not believe in.
Right. Tough times, but I can still cast a vision, right? It's this and this and this is going on, but at the end of the day, this is where we're at, right? I wouldn't have things in Omaha. I wouldn't be doing business out in South Point. I wouldn't be standing before you today knowing that I can be held accountable for the things that I say.
My son wouldn't be coming to school here.
They didn't even want him to.
Yeah.
I mean, truth be told.
Yeah.
That's a brand deal. And they tried lots of options.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, you sure you want to be in the throng of this? Yeah, Brandt's like, yep,
let's do it.
You're my people. Let's do this.
Let's ride.
Right?
So not like Russell Wilson.
It's weld. Let's weld. Let's forge. Let's do something.
Let's steal.
Silly. Yeah. But it's like I always appreciate. I admire people like that. Because a lot of people sit around and bitch and moan, man. It's like, what don't we have? What can't we do? Why is this going on? And at the end of the day, if it's not a controllable, it's a slow death. I always give the analogy, right? It's like you swallowing the cyanide, but expecting someone else to die. Like you got to move on.
Yeah.
And he's a competitor. And so it's just one of those things that I gravitate towards, because I think it's so hard for people to like give love or love something. But when you see it and you feel it, look how easy it is to be drawn to. Yet we just fight being able to take ourselves there, but we want it.
Oh yeah, that's part of the reason Rhule is so compelling. Is because
he loves this place.
It is his willingness to put himself out there, his willingness to put the stakes on the table.
Isn't making yourself vulnerable part of it?
100%. I was just going to say, it's a vulnerability.
Yeah. It's
because
it's hard for people to do, but it's powerful when you do it.
You're telling the world, this is the thing that I want. This is the thing I'm going to go after. So you're opening yourself up to, if you don't get it, you're opening yourself up to ridicule. I mean, that's what it is. We're not really afraid of the accountability. We're afraid of the ridicule. We're afraid of the backlash, right? We're afraid of, Coach Rhule is talking about, I'm going to bring championships back to Nebraska. And then he doesn't do it. And it's like, look at this clown. Yeah. It's the same thing where, if we kill LeBron for the Miami thing, not 2, not 3, not 4 rings. It's like, you only got 2, clown. Then you left after 4 years. What are we doing? Like, when you open yourselves up to it, like, yeah, sometimes it's a little cringy if you do it in like a weird parade thing like Miami Heat did. But when you do it in a genuine and vulnerable way, people can't help but be drawn to it. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to ridicule if you fail, but I think that's something people desire in their life because it's a genuine human moment from people we don't see as human beings very often.
Sounds a lot like clip 5. Shane, play clip 5.
We love the state of Nebraska. We love Lincoln. We love Omaha. We love everyone everywhere that we've been and everyone that we've met. And I just think sometimes we forget some of those things. We forget how great a place this is to raise our kids, and we forget how great a place this is to live and to work and to be around. And so, yeah, while it is a tough time losing someone of Trev's, caliber, all I'll say is, I believe you put 15 years in here in athletic administration. And from everything I see in our athletic department, this is a well-run athletic department, and this is a good place. And I know he's allowed me to do the things I think are necessary. So he's left the place better than he's found it. And so I think it's an unbelievable opportunity for us to move forward. And the one thing Trev would always say to me is, and I think he took this really seriously as the Husker that he is. He said to me, I'm only standing in this position as the athletic director at Nebraska. You're only standing in the position you're in because of the decisions that coaches like Tom Osborne and administrators made 20 years ago to put us in this position where we're, financially stable, we're secure, we have elite facilities, we have tremendous commitment.
Is it kind of put what you're saying together?
It really does. And he, I think, appreciates the fact that while he's in the position he can be in today because of the decisions that were made 20 years ago, I think he appreciates that his decisions are paving the way for whatever Nebraska is going to be 20 years from now.
Yeah, always try to surround yourself with people, even though, they wake up on third base, aren't always trying to tell you they hit a triple, right? And by that, I mean, surround yourself with people that can give you the good with the bad, but the pendulum is always kind of swing forward. It's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. But it's much easier to be around the folks that are nosing that thing forward. And I get it, right? There's sometimes situations can be so overwhelming where you get in kind of this why me stuck mode. And it's those critical times that I think he's talking about where you have to reflect on what is good, right? I remember sometimes my mom would say, and it wasn't terrible. It wasn't even bad sometimes, but sometimes we would go over like Christmas lists and stuff, and maybe she was painting a picture to lower the expectation level, but she would always say things like, well, we still have food in our health, right? Or, I would ask my dad, hey, what do you want for such and such? Yeah, I just want my family to be okay, or I just want my family to be healthy.
Sounds like my dad.
And it's like, they're being serious, right? It's not, they're just giving you, a different perspective. I remember, when I felt like I was in purgatory, right? In October and November and December, and DJ would say things like, let's focus on what we can build on, not what we fill the void, not trying to fill the void.
Because filling the void doesn't get you anywhere.
And it's amazing how that's what we're drawn to.
Makes you feel, because it makes you feel better in the moment.
And it's like this paralysis by analysis. So when Coach Rhule is like breaking down this situation, I just love the fact that his ability to assess, okay, this happened, now what? It's a total coach leader. Hey, you coughed it up on the 2-yard line. Now what? Hey, I asked you to comment it this way. You didn't. Now what? Hey, I know this environment bred this kind of behavior. Not anymore. Now what? Hey, I understand you're coming off a divorce in which you made a ton of bad decisions. Now what? Right? Like, those are the kinds of things that I think in those critical moments, that's what people rally around because the message is consistent. Whether he's right or wrong, the authenticity and the origin of what he says, where it comes from, doesn't waver.
No, it's coming.
It's not to say that he's not going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But the power source is extremely consistent where it's drawn from. I mean, how many different ways can he bring up family and surrounding yourself with people that care about you? You think that's not how he recruits?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that that's not what he's trying to build in the athletic department?
Well, do you think that's not why guys like Ty Robinson are back this year?
Well,
you think that's not why guys like Marcus Washington are tried so hard to get an extra year of eligibility? You know, like that's not because they think Nebraska.
Why would Casey Thompson entertain? Why would it even come in his scope?
Yeah, why was it even a possibility
that he wouldn't want to come back here?
And he spent like 2 months with the guy,
right?
Like Casey Thompson didn't spend a lot of time with him.
And this is
why would Heinrich Harburg? I get he's a Nebraska kid, right? I know he's got roots here, but that's a dude that goes 5-2 as a starter. Why would that dude be like, oh, I'll play tight end this year, right? Like, what guy that goes 5-2 in today's version of Division I Power 5 football as a quarterback is then just like, yeah, no, I'll be a weird H-back, third string, whatever.
Hey, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Hey, whatever you need.
But what's going to make us better?
Right? Just imagine the people that you say that to.
Imagine
like if you say to somebody, hey, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Just compartmentalize how you feel about that person you said it to.
The level of
right
care and trust I have to have in that person for me to say whatever you need is off the charts.
I said, hey, Bill, I trust you. Whatever you need.
100%.
I got you. You know what I mean?
Because you trust
so
them,
like my affinity for that. Yeah, it has to be at a high level.
You trust them with your own well-being, which we don't do very often.
100%.
And we certainly don't see it in high major athletics very often either. Coming up next,
to build on.
We'll set up the show, let you know who we've got coming up. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. This is Hurrdat Sports Radio. Well, and yesterday we found out that Coach Rhule listens to the show apparently because that's what we were asking for last week.
I felt like a lot of yesterday was like last week.
It was a lot of what Coach Rhule said kind of echoed and went in line with the things we were talking about last week. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. But it was that one in particular really stuck out to me because we had the clip outs on Twitter and all the social medias and stuff of you tell them like, hey, it's okay, but just fight through it.
Oh yeah,
fight through the nonsense. Fight because listen, there's nonsense everywhere. Okay, that's the part that I think gets me as upset as anything. I talked about it yesterday, where there's going to be challenges. If he doesn't think there's challenges at Texas A&M, like good luck, bud. Because if you think people are opinionated here on what should be done with the football program, I said this on Twitter last night. Texas A&M is the embodiment. If Mo Money, Mo Problems was an athletic department, it'd be Texas A&M. They have never been able to figure their stuff out in 100 years. You think that's a coincidence? You think that it's just like, oh, yeah, this super talent-rich, oil-rich, money-rich school in Texas has never been able to figure things out? That's an accident? They have one fake title from 1937 that they claim? That's it? Like, you think that's that's an accident? It's like, no, there's a lot of people that have opinions on how things should be done, and it's really hard to manage.
I just had it wasn't supposed to be an intense conversation. I just was I was talking to an individual. It's now probably 2 weeks on a young man's behalf, and he kept wanting to make it about something that it wasn't.
Okay,
right? Like, and I was like, hey, that's good, that's fine. I didn't even want to debate that, right? It's like you can think this, you can think that. That's okay. All I'm saying is this part of it, this isn't good, right? Like we got to stop this. And it was, it tried to get a little personal. And when I hung up the phone, I was like, gosh, that was the best that I could do, right?
Mhm.
Do you know how you feel like you have a conversation and it's like, ooh, gosh, I need a mulligan, or I probably shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
That one I felt like, okay, like I did really well because I knew where my heart was. My heart was just about that one thing. So I wasn't going to get distracted with anything
Yeah.
else of the preconceived,
All the ancillaries.
of the preconceived feelings.
Yeah.
Right. And it made the conversation a lot easier.
Yeah, 'cause you had clarity of purpose.
That's what I'm talking about right here.
Mhm.
So when people will say this about Coach Rhule, it's like, he doesn't miss,
Mhm.
or he's batting 1,000,
Mhm.
or how about the timing? And I'll like sometimes be mesmerized at what a quick blinker he is,
Mhm.
or his quick. Remember, I told you I think I'm pretty okay at that stuff.
Mhm.
And so I try to find ways to challenge myself with him,
Mhm.
just to see where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's the weird competitive. I'm just saying this out loud, but
Sure.
I totally do this with him, right?
Yeah.
And there are times where and he's younger than me,
Mhm.
right? It's not like some sage, savvy old veteran. He's younger than me. And there are times where I told you, I had to check myself. I'm like, I think he just got me. and I think that's kind of hard to do.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and
it's even harder to admit, though.
and I would have to sit there and I'm like, what just happened?
Right.
And I would do that like 6 or 7 times in a row. In a row. So then I just shut it down.
And when's the last time that's happened to you in your life?
So I can think of a couple people that are good at that.
Yeah.
That,
But not a lot.
No.
Yeah.
Noddle's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. Like he and I can have these conversations. In Madison, he and I talked in the lobby till 2 a.m.
Mhm.
And I woke up feeling like $1,000,000 with knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. DJ has.
Sure.
We'll have to get him on. He has this ability to process quickly.
Mhm.
I mean, quickly. But so there are some people out there. But I say all that to say he's so good in the moment because he only cares about a couple of things.
Right.
Right?
It's so much easier. No, that's 100%.
That's what it is, though.
Because it's so much.
That's what made the phone call easier to have. Even though he said a lot of things that I didn't like.
Yeah. I
wasn't distracted. And I even remember saying when I hung up, I was like, okay, hey, we're good. I just wanted to I made the call. That's as good as I can do.
Mhm.
Right. So, and I had to let it ride.
Yeah.
Even though I want to say a lot of other, it wasn't productive. Right. He could say a lot of other things.
Mhm.
It's not productive because he only cares about a few things.
It makes communication. It makes everything so much simpler when you've got very clear cut. Like, these are the things I care about.
He just doesn't get distracted.
And if you can focus in on those things, it does seem like he never misses because he's not trying to answer every single thing.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah, that's it. So when you take a super bright guy and a quick blinker,
yeah,
and he can
and you focus him,
and he's focused,
yeah,
that's when you get that's why he sounds like a genius.
Because it's really, really easy to get distracted, especially in a situation like this, where, and I've done it, where you're like, oh, doesn't Trev look so stupid putting on that jacket and doing the swaying back and forth?
Oh, I got to apologize to one of my guys online too.
Why?
So, and I like him. I don't know him, but it's a message board thing. Yeah. Right. So it's social media, and I think he was kind of making a joke about Dana Altman and
the pig suey.
But this hasn't happened yet. This was last week.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I was like, they're not remotely alike. Like, number one, he hasn't done a presser from Fayetteville yet. Number two, I don't think he'd reached his shelf life at Lincoln yet.
Yeah.
And number three, like, I think the decisions that he's making doesn't have his best interest at heart. Like, I think there's this thing in the decision that has Nebraska. Doesn't seem like it, but I think Nebraska's well-being is in the picture. I know you listen. I don't have to get you to agree. It's fine. Like, That's
Okay.
cool, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just telling you what I said.
Yeah, that's right.
And
At the time, I
he-
would have
he-
agreed. At
he
the time, I
messaged
would
me
have agreed.
back, and he was like, "Relax, bud." I wasn't being serious, and he's pretty good,
Yeah.
right? And I was gonna go back and be like, "No, I wasn't being serious." Like, I just was saying, like, it's
It's a
different.
different scenario.
Like, I wasn't mad about it.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
It felt a little.
it
the same.
felt a little of the same, right? So I may have to go back and be like, "Hey,
Yeah, my
man."
bad. You got that one.
But he's got to understand, like, you guys understand, like, in the moment,
Yeah.
it was
a
true.
week ago.
Yesterday,
yes, it wasn't true anymore.
like, that's not him.
No.
That, like, I don't care what anybody says. That's not him.
Well, neither is the way he's been acting on Twitter, but here we are, right?
So it's like,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
he's been acting a little out there.
But back to Coach Rhule's clarity, it's what he asks of his staff. It's what he asks of his team.
And it makes everybody's life easier.
And he finds this way to really believe in just a short amount of time. He's combining family, his team, his staff, and the university in one lump sum. This is our house. How can I protect our house? So the clarity of the message is really, really easy because he's not distracted by what somebody said, or it's why he can it's why he can be with people that other people may not like. It may not be popular in a sphere of influence. And he's like, I don't care. Are they good for my players in the University of Nebraska? If that's the case, I'm going to be my own man.
And do they help me achieve?
Forget your
2 or
feelings.
3 things.
Leave those at the door.
Do they help me achieve these 2 or 3 things I actually care about?
100%.
Coming up on the show today, we've got Kent Pavelka at 8 o'clock. We've got Matt Coatney at 8:45. We'll wrap up with Steve Sipple at 9 of Husker Online. Great show for you here today. Super Husker heavy.
Nice work, Shane.
We will be back. I've got a thought about one of the things that I was most happy to hear from Coach Rhule yesterday. We haven't even got to it yet. It seems like we're going to have a lot of Matt Rhule on the show today. That's all right with me. I'm sure it's all right with you too. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. This is Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. DB's ready to fight me already. It's early for that. We're still in the 7 o'clock hour. If you can wait till at least 9 to fight me, that'd be fine.
It's cool.
I just need a little time. You know, I got to let the energy drink hit. I got to let the
You better try it.
you got to stop. That's DB. I'm Ravi. This is Hurrdat
He's a
Sports
great
Radio.
follow on TikTok. You just have to turn the volume down.
Yeah, you just can't.
Got-
No, listen.
Going
Okay.
down with them chicken thighs.
We're on AM
I'm
590.
going to go ahead and bust them on down.
ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. If I have to not listen to you on a platform, then I'm not following you.
Recipes are fantastic.
That'd be
bro.
like,
You
I
better
don't
try it.
why would I care about recipes? I don't cook.
Oh, you're such a hater. Why are you always raining on my parade?
Listen, you can like him. You could also not do impressions of him on the air.
it was really off air. You brought it back on air.
No, I did not.
Man, Shane's not producing. I didn't know I didn't even recognize what we were doing.
Are you guys going?
Are you guys going?
I don't even recognize what we're doing here. I like how we just do our own drops now. We don't.
Hopefully there's something good there.
Yeah, forgive me.
There was something else good in Rhule's press conference yesterday. And I think it answered, again, I know this is sort of a Coach Rhule love fest in the first hour here, but I do think that's how a lot of the state came away feeling yesterday. And he answered really specifically a fear that people have, which I appreciated. It's really easy, especially coaches these days. They don't want to get painted into a corner. They don't want to have the Roy Williams moment where he says, I don't give a bleep about North Carolina after losing a national championship game. And then he goes to North Carolina like a week later. They don't want to be that guy in that moment. Mm-hmm. So they give vague non-answers and they don't address things directly and all that, right? What's one of the biggest fears people had last week as Trev was leaving? Oh, Coach Rhule said he's here because of Ted Carter and Trev Alberts. Now both of those guys are gone. What does that mean for the future of Coach Rhule, right? Does that put him in play if somebody else comes calling? And that was a real fear people had. Mm-hmm. And I think reasonable because Coach Rhule is kind of the last one we have left that we're like, hey, this guy's kind of riding for us. And now he's the only one left in the building that we feel that way about. And that's not accurate, right? Like I've asked a ton of people about Dennis LeBlanc. I don't know
like 2000. I would read my message his thing to me, but I don't have permission, so I'll have to call him.
But like, I haven't heard a single person have a bad thing to say about Dennis LeBlanc.
You know, 2 things I can tell you without saying what we're talking about with Dennis LeBlanc at more than 2 or more times has reached out post 11:30 p.m. At night to make sure a couple of student athletes were where he needed them to be, not just physically, but emotionally.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of stuff that Dennis does. And I've been gone from that university for 28 years.
Yeah.
That's just who he is.
And it's not just to football players. I've talked to people in other
Doesn't
sports.
matter. Ask Rob Thomas. Ask any of these guys.
Yeah.
Like wrestling.
I've talked to people in different sports from the University of Nebraska over his entire time over at the university. Not a single bad. At the first thing that comes out of their mouths, they almost don't even let me finish the question. Is, "Oh, I love Dennis. Oh, he's the best."
You know, the most famous line at Omaha, it was the catalyst for kind of getting me out of my pouty baby immature funk. He looked dead at me from about 6 feet away, whatever the width of his desk was. And he said, "You're on the verge of being the single greatest underachiever I've ever seen."
Oh,
I was like, okay, that's what we're on today. No, we weren't saying that back then.
Right.
I just remember
feeling that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in my.
But it's the thing you needed to hear, right?
Man, listen, I'm in my little raggedy Timberland boots, and I got my jeans tucked in and some stupid New England Patriots hat on that I was wearing. And I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And I was like, underachiever. You know how many people have had to have come through this door before me? But when you're coming off a 1.7 GPA and you think you're going to be a marine biologist in a landlocked state, you better get your ass in gear.
Yeah.
Right?
You got to figure some things out there.
And like those are the conversations he was willing to have. And ask Coach Rhule, like if he had to take some truth serum, like that was kind of a learning process to get to work with two people that are very good at their craft. They had to figure out where those worlds were going to collide. Wasn't always rainbows and butterflies early on. But guess who's all in now?
Well, and if you have 2 guys that genuinely care about the same things, then they will find a way.
You'll figure it out
to make it work.
It's almost what he just said, and it's exactly what he just said in that clip, right?
Yes.
You can,
if you can, you can come at things. I wrote it down. Where to go? We can all believe in different things and still come together for what's best for the institution we love.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole thing right there. Like, that's the whole thing. If you start with, "Hey, we love this place. How do we make it the best we can be?" If you start there,
take me out of it, take you out of it.
Everything else is possible.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that. See, that's actually conflict resolution, though. That's 101.
Yeah, it's like, hey, start from if you can find any place of commonality.
And like anytime we have a disagreement or a differing of opinions, hey, let's take the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
Let's just start here.
Which I don't like doing, but
I'll tell you, if you don't want to be losing these discussions, you're gonna figure it out because you're already starting to work ahead of me now because you'll know where I want to land the plane. So I can see you kind of positioning yourself like a defensive stance, like he's gonna try to walk me into a corner. I'm not doing it. I'm gonna
be honest though. There's times where I'm okay losing the argument if I just get my point out. Like that's if I'm being totally honest. Like, you can bury me.
I just want to be heard.
You can bury me, but as long as I get to say it out loud, I'll let the people decide. I'm fine with that. I can live with it. I'll live with the results.
What was the conversation? Alex Sindelar was laughing. He sent us the DM. What was that conversation? Oh, the AD job.
Yeah.
You mad about that?
Nah, I'm fine. No, the thing I wanted to say about Rhule, though,
He said he was breaking his neck nodding. Can you imagine? I could just picture him because he's silly.
Well, he probably had the cigarette like dangling out of his mouth, and he's he's out in Western Nebraska. He's probably listening to us on Tri-Cities these days. No, so I don't know how we got here. That should be the name of the show.
That is so I can appreciate the honesty though.
Yeah.
You're just gonna say it, even though because you just want your.
Because it's what I feel.
I want to be heard.
Yeah, and I want it out there, and I may not feel that way tomorrow, but in the moment, it's like, yeah, I feel like this needs to be vocalized.
I love
and sometimes I'm going to win the argument, and sometimes you're going to bury me for it, and that's fine. I can live with that.
You're like,
listen. It's what we talked about before, right? If you're okay with the consequences,
yeah,
all choices become viable.
100%.
And I'm okay with the consequence that I might get buried in an argument because I'm too emotional.
And that's how a lot. That's legit.
I'm okay with losing.
That's not far fetched.
I'm okay with losing a lunch bet on Creighton because I get too emotional during a game. It happens.
By the way,
that's
I probably won't be hungry till next week.
That's fine. We'll figure it out.
It's
all good. I owe Verse $20 too because I bet against Caleb.
Which I.
They were playing Miller North, man.
I get it.
And so he's like, he also asked me,
and they blew it. I would have laughed if it had hit on the money line too. Because what were the points? What did he give you? 7?
6.5.
6.5.
Yeah, I tried to get 4.5, and he's like,
he's so childish too. He said, "Hey, I bet Ravi didn't tell you he bet against your kid, did he?"
He did. Yeah.
I go, what?
Yeah. He's like, wait, what do you mean?
What?
Selfish. Real quick. I mean, we've got like a minute and a half here. We can pick this up after we talk to Kent.
God bless Miller North.
But listen, those are my guys. Roll Stanks.
T-Mats.
The thing that Coach Rhule addressed head on yesterday, which I appreciated, he didn't dance around it. He didn't use coach speak, was this fear that he's going to be the next out the door. And he goes, I came here for a purpose, not just people.
One more time for those in the back.
I came here for a purpose, not just people. That's why he's not that's why he seems so unflappable, is because he's not. And I tried to get this point across, but he's better at saying stuff than I am, which sucks because that's my job. Like, it's a bummer when somebody does something casually better than the thing that you do professionally. Like, that's tough out here.
Having a good 3-minute stretch, man.
That's tough out here for my guy, But I was trying to say that yesterday or last week with Trev. One of the things that bothered me is he seemed to be. I almost wanted to use the term wishy-washy with the, I don't like the leadership ahead of me. Or it's like, you need to be the pillar. And that's what Coach Rhule is. He's the pillar. It's like all this nonsense can happen around him, but he's for a purpose, not for people, because the people are always going to change.
That's why timing matters, right? Getting him post-Carolina versus pre.
100%.
He learned to grow from setbacks.
And he also learned that, like, hey, I can be the force for change. I don't necessarily need, yes, he's going to have people around him that he trusts and likes. He doesn't necessarily rely on having people ahead of him that he wants to be around. That is, I'm sure we'll have more Coach Rhule. We've got Kent Pavelka coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we're joined now by the voice of Husker men's basketball, Kent Pavelka. Kent, thanks for joining us this morning. How are you?
Good, Ravi. How are you doing, man? Is Damon there too?
Yeah, what's up, legend? How we doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh, my head's above water. It's always a good morning, man. We kind of hit the trifecta with some huge personalities, so why not let you get it kicked off, man? This has to be good for you, man. You've hung in there, the eternal optimist, man. Are you packed?
Well, pretty much. Yeah, just about. I've got, I'll be going over it with a fine-tooth comb here because I plan to stay. But I got to say, Ravi, I knew back in the day when I was in the football booth that Damon eventually would get honorable work. So, I'm proud of you, man.
Awful early on a Tuesday, KP. Awful early, buddy.
Ken, it's funny you bring that up because I literally, before we came on the air, I was like, I know you're this iconic voice of Husker basketball, but because of the time I grew up, every time I hear you, I'm like, Husker football, baby. That's my guy. Touchdown, Tommy Frazier. That's my guy right there. So it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Kent. But I guess just let's go back to the Big Ten tournament weekend. That game in Indiana was sort of feels like a fever dream a little bit. Like there was a level of euphoria around that game as it's playing out, not just locally, but it got some national steam as well. As you're on the call for that, could you feel that energy as it's happening real time?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. I mean, I was hypnotized. And, you know, the interesting thing, Coach Hoiberg mentioned afterwards the next day that I don't know where his head was, because he said, I was looking around and I saw a Michigan and a Michigan State fan chest bump when Tominagi hit that half-court shot. I mean, so the entire arena, if they weren't Indiana fans, they were taken by this team. And certainly our fan base has been. I have been. I'm just a little nervous that, the bubble will burst. I hope not, because, that's kind of been reality for all time for Nebraska in this tournament. But yes, it's been a real special kind of successful season, and it's hard to put into words unless you're of a similar ilk. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of people probably look at this and go, "Grow up, man. This is a basketball game." Well, to me, all of this reflects a relationship between not only, this is not just a basketball game. It represents something way bigger. And if you don't like that, tough, right? I mean, that's just where I'm at and where I've been.
Ken, you mentioned the history for all time of Nebraska getting to this point is disappointment. How much do you think, I mean, obviously sort of everyone around the program is aware of it, but how much of that do you think Fred Hoiberg and the team are actually aware of, or even maybe thinking about because you almost have to acknowledge it to get over the hump, right?
Well, I don't know if you have to acknowledge it to get over the hump. You just have to play well. But you're alluding to something I think is very valid, especially with Fred. The players, they're young. You asked Damon. I mean, when Damon, you're there. You don't have to ask him. I can. But
it's a conversation. You can ask us questions too. That's fine.
Would you translate for me, Ravi? No, but even back when winning national championships in football, I think it was more meaningful for the fans and for people like me than it was the players. So certainly you guys were, you knew what was on the line, but you just don't have the mileage on you to appreciate it at the depth most of us did. And so, yes, the players are certainly aware of it, and they want to do this for the fans and for the state and accomplish something that will be bigger than just a win. But for Coach Hoiberg, it goes back to his granddad, and this guy is the salt of the earth, Fred Hoiberg.
Gosh, yeah.
If he weren't the mayor of Ames, he'd be the governor of the state. Move over, Jim Pillen.
It's interesting, KP, because we said, was this Friday or Monday? I think I said he's so free, and I was telling Ravi, I said there's so much in there. He's become a joy to listen to. He's been very good through the media talking to his players. Like, he's been really forthright. And I said to Ravi, I said, I wonder if it's because it's such a tight-knit unit. He has the freedom to he can utilize some tough love through the microphone. They respond well. He just seems locked in. Like, this has to be one of his most enjoyable years, and we've seen the most of his personality. Is there a coincidence?
No, I don't think so, Damon. I think, if you go back and if people paid attention 3, 4, 5 years ago, there wasn't this kind of focus. You just weren't paying that much attention to what he was saying. But he's just always been so honestly forthright. Mm-hmm. And there is no affectation with this guy. There are no glaring, personality issues. I mean, he's not a nutso coach like so many of them are. He's not he's not angry. He's not, his ego's in check. Everything you hear and listen to, let it sink in. It is what it is. And, there's a man crush going on here, man. I love him. I love his family. And I just think it'd be so great if he could pull this off on Friday. He's something.
I want to go back to what you said about the fan base, because I do think, and we've talked about this for years, there's this basketball is at the frontal lobe of a lot of Nebraskans. They've just been afraid to embrace it because of the heartbreak. And there are so many Nebraska fans. I likened it to when you guys were at the Big Ten tournament. I remember coming out of the tunnel in '94. And when we first heard the Nebraska crowd in Miami, it did something. It was like, oh my goodness, right? This is what everybody talks about. This is no longer a road game. And and you can hear, the parabolic mics and stuff. You can see the fans that were in Minnesota, and you guys are on that ridiculous run. And you're like, see, these are the people that have long, suffered, if you will, but have gone through it, wanted to be big fans. Now they can proudly say, hey, listen, we may have something. There's this symbiotic weird thing between the state of Nebraska, its basketball fans, and this program. What do you think it is? Because it's there.
Oh, man,
it's there.
You just put into words what I've been trying to say for 50 years. There's a connection between. Well, first of all, what I said a while ago, I think is valid, and that is that you can misunderstand, misconstrue this conversation and just, brush it off as a couple of, two, I don't know, Ravi, you're all blue, but two.
Listen, hold on, Kent.
Equal opportunity offender. Get him, KP.
I'm not going to offend you. I just tell truth here, but you're good. You're good.
Listen, I want Nebraska basketball to do well too. This
is more than just a game. This thing, as Coach Osborne once said, this thing that we have concocted for ourselves. I think that's
memory.
The greatest quote I ever heard.
Great memory.
In a nutshell.
Oh my!
Putting in a nutshell what Nebraska athletics is to its fans, but it is. It's a sense of community. It's a connection of unashamed. Parochialism, Husker athletics is about, for us, the spirit, human spirit, the need and the desire to connect with each other through common cause. It's emblematic. It's not a game. It is a thing that's hard to define. But I think yes, we together. There's a spirit here that is beyond the surface, and we just vicariously share the experience of what happens on the football field or what happens on the basketball floor. So, call me crazy, probably am, but that's what I see.
We're talking with Kent Pavelka, play-by-play voice of your Nebraska men's basketball team, who's taking pot shots at one of us here. That's fine. No, Kent. I found myself thinking a lot the last few weeks about, if I had told you or myself or whoever 2 years ago that Nebraska basketball would be in the place that it is today, I would have had a really hard time believing that. As you've seen it up close and personal, obviously they've changed the way they've recruited, they've changed their coaching staff, they changed a lot of things. But if you had to really narrow it down, what would you say is the biggest difference between those first few years of the Fred Hoiberg era and the last two when we've really seen this thing take off a little bit?
That's a great question. Do you want a long, convoluted answer? Or
Absolutely.
You have unique insight. The floor is yours.
Okay, I got one word for you: culture. That's the answer. It's a whole different culture. And it's a 180 from what it was those first couple of years. And there are a lot of reasons it was that way for those first couple of years. Now, let's not put the cart before the horse here. I don't think this team's getting to the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
Got to get over that hurdle on Friday, and that's going to be hard. And I suppose that the bandwagon will empty out to a great degree if they don't win it. And you just call this whole thing quali. But still, regardless of whether they win or lose, what you posited there is just as valid as it can be. It's been a total wholesale change in terms of what this thing is, and it's all about the change of culture.
Do you have something in kind of your head that you think, Coach, they've got to do scout, obviously he's got time to prepare for a team that gets on the glass the way that A&M does. They don't shoot the three very well. They give up a ton of threes. Is there some sort of, hey, it's a little bit like this, or do you like the matchup kind of as it is based on their strengths, Nebraska's weaknesses? How are you kind of looking at the matchup in its totality?
Well, I'd love to be a mouse in the corner and listen to the coach and Nate Linzer as they get ready for this thing, because, you get in the weeds, Damon, with X's and O's with football and talk over a lot of people's heads. And I do, they do that all the time when I'm privileged to be in a film session. So there's that going on.
Mm-hmm.
But in essence, the bottom line is real simple: just defensive rebound. If Nebraska can keep those guys off the glass to a reasonable degree, I think it will. That'll be the key to the win, because I think the Huskers are going to be able to get shots. I think they're going to be able to on the offensive end, and if they can get defensive rebounds, push it a little bit. But the key will be to frustrate them by holding them, to one shot. If it's the opposite of that, then there's trouble. We've seen that time and time again. They are like Rutgers on steroids, Illinois on par with Illinois in terms of their ability to just punish you with offensive rebounds.
It's interesting you mentioned Nate, and he's one of Nebraska's better kept secrets. He's in Omaha all the time. And Fred's staff, and it's as a whole, just his ability to kind of turn it over and hit the ground running. They become very defensive minded. That staff doesn't get enough credit, does it? It's pretty cool that you mentioned Nate by name, because he's fantastic. I messaged him the other night. He responds, it's X amount of time in the morning. I'm like, just good, solid people doing good, solid things, man. It's kind of a microcosm of this staff, isn't it?
It is. And not casting aspersions on anybody in the rearview mirror. Doc Sadler is one of my best friends, and he was a treasure for all those years as the head coach and when he was assisting Fred. And I'm not, let's don't forget Adam Howard and Ernie Ziegler and Luca and Kurt Joseph, the strength coach. This is a great group, and it's been a joy. It's been a joy this last year. It's been a joy all these years, really. This program has not been awful at all. I mean, they've been very competitive. You can run. I can give you a list of 50 names of guys and 25 Hall of Famers who've come to Lincoln and walked out of there with their tail between their legs. So I mean, there've been good teams, no great teams, but this thing coming up here Friday is going to be a big one. I'm just afraid of it because I don't want to walk away with a loss again. Like I own it somehow. That's which is
you're emotionally.
That's the best part is we all own it, right?
You get a pass, KP. I mean, you've seen it, you've been there, you've done it, you're invested, you love it. Like, I almost feel like, I hate to say deserve, because I know you probably wouldn't, but you could at least say you've earned it, right?
Well, I don't know. I've just done what I do, and no, I haven't earned anything. I've gotten exactly what I've put into it. It's been joyful, but it would be nice. All
right, Ken, I got a request for you for the broadcast this weekend. Can we get like an obscure walking in Memphis line somewhere? Like you can't say walking in Memphis, but somewhere in the
Your and
broadcast,
Jake's rapport is so good. There,
somewhere
you
in the
guys are
broadcast,
unbelievable.
I need like an obscure line for Mark Cohen's walking in Memphis. Can you do that for me?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got till Friday. I need all the material.
Oh,
stop.
Maybe I'm just tossing it out. Listen, I'm not a play-by-play guy, so I'm just saying maybe it's like, hey, Nebraska's dancing shoes are blue suede this time or something. I gotta know, just something like that.
Well, you know what? I got a little sheet going here with a few ideas. So,
And it's great too. Why I like it, and sometimes I'll do the radio broadcast. I've got it down to a science with the pause.
You sync them up.
I can sync them, and
Yeah.
I've talked about this, so it's not just because I'm talking to you, KP. But you and Jake, you have like these little funny back and forth, and then all of a sudden you can immediately snap back into the game. It's like it's you doing this. You can't command that. It just has to be something that evolves, man. You and like Jake and his ability to kind of play off you, it's pretty cool to hear.
yeah, thank you, Damon. And he'll be happy to hear that. We have a good time together, and it's a great fit. He's a wonderful human being, and I love him as a broadcast partner. It's just a lot of fun, and I hate to see the end of the season come, but maybe Friday won't be the end.
Yeah, think
Awesome.
positive.
Let's get some W's. It doesn't have to be the end of the season.
I just want to see that arena taken over with Husker fans if they get to the
if
they get to the weekend.
Southwest flights are any indication, they're all going to be there already.
Yeah, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, KP.
I hope so. It's kind of like Christmas when you were like 9. You want the bicycle, and then you don't get it. That's what I'm afraid of.
Maybe you'll get a big wheel instead. That's even better, right?
There you go.
Thanks, KP.
Kent, we appreciate you.
Safe travels.
Hey, fellas. Thanks.
That's the one and only Kent Pavelka, play-by-play voice of your Nebraska men's basketball team, voice of my youth for Husker football. Because, people don't realize now, like back in the day, you had to listen to games on the radio a decent amount.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of how I grew up with Nebraska football. I'd get to watch like a couple a year, but I'd listen to Kent a ton on the radio. Yeah, that was incredible.
The thing that I like about him is he's not a sugarcoater, right? I mean, he couple shots, right? Even got me with talking over guys' heads, but it's genuine.
Yeah.
Like
you can tell he wants it.
Yeah, you can handle it.
You
right?
can tell
it's not always easy. He's particular, but
you could tell he wants that W bad.
Yeah, and it's people like that. Like even we're going to talk to two, right? Coatney, huge basketball fan, right? Been a huge basketball fan. Sipple loved basketball before he was even thinking about football.
Yeah.
He grew up a diehard hoops head. So it's like
used to be a real good NBA guy too. He doesn't watch a ton anymore. But.
You want it for
and honestly, that's
I want it for you can hear KP's emotions.
Yes.
And and I
appreciate that he talks about
just
it.
To get it off their back.
Yeah, I appreciate that he talks about it the way a fan would, in the sense of like he is a little bit scared.
Yeah.
Of what happens?
Yeah, you hear that, right? Because he is.
And I appreciate that transparency, because a lot of broadcasters would be like, "Oh, it's just the job and whatever," and it's like, no, man, he's been doing this. This is like most of his adult life, right? Has been involved with Nebraska basketball, and so it does matter to him. And I appreciate that he's honest about that, because if he wasn't, I'd be like, "Why do you do this?"
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine calling games for a team I didn't care about for that long. It's like I'd go crazy.
Yeah, he is definitely emotionally invested. And
he
and Jake are hilarious.
They are. They're incredible together. But listen, I know he won't say it. He does deserve this.
Yeah.
Like he deserves, and that's part of
earn. Let's say earn. I'm afraid to use deserve, because if we actually got what we deserve, none of us would be here.
That's fair. He's earned the right.
Appreciate grace.
He's earned the right to watch Nebraska win their first tournament game.
Yeah.
If anybody has, he's earned it. And listen, he takes the pot shot at me for being a Creighton fan. I get it. That's fine. It's true, right? But
go Jace.
People like Kent, which there's not a lot of them, right? But people like Kent in terms of their affinity for Nebraska basketball. I have a lot of those people in my life that are like hardcore. Shout out Cole. He listens every day. He's a hardcore Nebraska basketball fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy for people like them. And I want to be like, that's where I'll be celebrating on Friday if Nebraska gets their first tournament win. It'll be for people like that in my life that I know have gone through it, and they get rewarded by this NCAA tournament win. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I'm as invested in Nebraska basketball as I am in Creighton basketball. That's just not how I grew up, right? So that's not genuine. But I do genuinely want them to win. I do genuinely root for them to do well and play. Honestly, for the longest time, I just wanted them to play appealing basketball to watch, because that was the hardest part for me. Like, doing this is, okay, I don't want to have to watch bad basketball to be good at my job, right? And they finally, in the last couple of years, what? They played bad basketball for a long time.
You just can't help yourself, can you?
Am I wrong?
you just.
They played unappealing.
It's like I tell people sometimes, just because you think it doesn't mean you have to
That's
say
literally the whole job.
All is permissible. All is not beneficial.
Am I wrong?
Well,
there was some.
You're getting me distracted from what you really want to say.
There was some unwatchable basketball in like the Doc Sadler, Tim Miles.
Yeah.
That's all. No, but it is. So that's what I rooted for more than anything, was just to have a fun product to watch. To have more good basketball in the state. But I am really, really happy, and I will be even happier for the guys that you were talking about that are like low-key kind of hoops heads, but are kind of afraid to say it out loud. They remind me of my buddy in Illinois who's an Illinois football fan first, and there's like 4 of them that are Illinois football over Illinois basketball, but they're kind of afraid to say it out loud, right?
I saw a mock through multiple rounds where they had Newton going to the Steelers, their D-line.
Ooh.
From Illinois.
Jerjon?
Yeah.
He's a beast.
Yeah, it's down the road. Figure out our O-line first.
Coming up next, we've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio and a little bit of, I don't know if it's breaking news, but we got some news coming out of the University of Nebraska as well here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Using your seatbelt saves lives and prevents injuries only if it is worn properly. Make it click. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Good stuff there with our guy Kent Pavelka, hoping that the good old Nebraska basketball team, both men and women, can get a win this weekend. But wanted to chime in on a little bit of news that came down from the Lincoln Journal-Star.
Because we got Coatney up here
at 8:43. We'll talk to Matt Coatney, play-by-play voice of women's basketball.
He's probably like, "Why are you bugging me? This is the second time in 2 weeks." Coat, you're hilarious.
He wasn't on. He was on here 2 weeks ago, was he?
Yeah. Shane, what was that?
It was more than 2 weeks ago.
Maybe 3.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Oh, I don't know. From the Lincoln Journal-Star, University of Nebraska Board of Regents will name a priority candidate to become the system's 9th president on Wednesday. So we will get a name tomorrow.
Yeah, because they're in closed session.
We will get a name tomorrow.
Or they call that executive. Which is it?
I think it's an executive session.
Whatever it is, it's closed.
Yes.
So isn't that weird? What the church chat lady used to say? How convenient.
Oh, that was in that special.
Whatever the hell it is.
So I mean, there's a you can point a pretty direct line from what happened last Wednesday and what's about to happen this Wednesday, I think.
But would you wear a maroon blazer and sway on stage for that?
I certainly would not.
What are the odds you think Trev knows the name?
I have to imagine that was
pretty high.
I have to imagine that was a factor in him deciding to move on. You
still mad?
Yeah. We simply can't do that. I'm going to stay mad. 100%.
I just want to thank you.
Did you hear that? He said, Ravi, I just want to thank you.
I mean, listen, Trev was in a incredibly unique position here as not only someone with a great amount of influence.
To be a hero status?
Yes.
So if they would have stayed together, this pair, and
Rhule and Alberts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would have been the first to be elected for office?
Ooh, probably Trev.
It's close.
I don't know that Rhule is interested in that.
But can you imagine? But now fast forward, say Rhule wins 8 or 9.
Yeah. He could run the state and the football team at the same time, and people would let him.
Be like, oh, okay, whatever you say.
Yeah, they'd be like, "You got it, bud."
That's why I
Do
love.
you want to be
that's-
the president
That's
too?
why I love. I mean, early on in the relationship, Shane, is
Hey,
there
Shane,
something
your
in my
mic's
ear?
on, bud.
Early on in my relationship with him, when he said, "I need to guard against this place. It's not Disneyland."
Hold on.
Shane, you're coming through the. You're coming through.
When he said that this isn't Disney, I knew right away. I'm like, if you can do that, we're on to something.
What
Yeah,
can I
because
do? Turn
that's-
my mic off?
Yeah, turn your mic off, Shane.
Nobody can do that.
Yeah, you can. There's a button over there. Just turn it off. It's fine. Let's get to Michigan Lance here on the phone. Let's talk about the Nebraska AD. Incoming or outgoing, Michigan Lance? Which one do you want to talk about?
Oh man, do y'all got a new one yet?
No, not yet. I thought maybe you had
I
names
thought you
for
were
us.
calling to tell me why Mike Hart would leave Michigan so abruptly.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Isn't that kind of off? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that's about. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's kind of that's wild to me. What I don't want to, he got to be careful here, man, because they had a good balance of young and old staff members. You don't want to get too old, too long. Is it long in the tooth for older people? They call it. You don't want to.
You talking about Michigan?
Yeah. Their football staff. Yeah, you don't want to go the other way, man, because Harbaugh started that way, and it really wasn't working out. So you better have good balance. I don't really. I've been around that guy. Is it Tony Alford? I've been around him when he was at Iowa State back in the mid 2000s. He's been around a long time trying to get a head job, or I don't know if he was trying or not, but I assume he wanted to, but hasn't got one yet. But I don't know, man. You got to be careful with that. Mike Hart and was a big addition to them and bringing some youth and some good coaching and some pride and stuff. So I don't know, man. It's kind of, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what you want.
Kind of flew under the national radar.
Yeah, it did. What didn't Nebraska 80 triple. Now let me ask you this about working at Nebraska, right? Okay, DB, were you a guy? How did you feel about either a PJ Fleck or a Deion Sanders coming to Nebraska? How did you feel about it? Were you okay with that? Did you think that would work? Not work? What?
No, I didn't think either would work.
Okay, all right. So was it fit?
Yes.
Okay.
So
and a lot of people.
It's like NIL in the state of Nebraska, right? NIL could flourish. 1890 could flourish. I think there's a mental block between what this state represents in terms of hardworking, don't give anybody anything, earn your keep, and its capacities to support NIL. So there's the disconnect. The same as I would think.
Oh, I got you.
The same as I would say there's a disconnect between PJ Fleck and Deion Sanders, what the words would bring to the table without any actions first. I think it goes against what this state typically gravitates towards.
Okay. And a lot of people agree, right? Didn't they? A lot of people agree with it. Right?
I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, let me not say a lot of people agree. A lot of people, I heard that a lot, and I heard that from other media members in Nebraska.
Well, why are we so reluctant to support NIL the way we should?
Hey, man, all I'm saying is Trev Alberts. We thought Trev Alberts was the fit.
Well, he was.
And then all of a sudden he's not. So what is if he's not, right? If he's not, because he's not there anymore. Like, what is going on? Like, that's my thing.
Lance,
ready?
We're kind of doing two different things here, right? Because he could have been the right. Yeah, because he could have been the right fit and still left. Like, him leaving doesn't automatically retroactively make him not a good
everything
fit.
was dirty.
I agree with that.
Does that make sense? Like, just because he left doesn't mean it wasn't a good fit for Nebraska. Now, it might not have been a good fit for him anymore, but it was a good fit for Nebraska when they hired him.
Hold on. Okay. When they have, but what I'm talking about the time he's there, because something for him didn't fit right to make him leave. Right? There was things he was trying to do, or I'm assuming you can,
yeah.
It seems like there was things he was trying to do they didn't want to do, right? Or didn't agree for him to do, or what?
or there were things that the direction that the university was moving towards in terms of their hierarchy that he didn't feel like he would be a good fit for that particular hire. That could be a thing too.
Okay, right. So right. Okay, there you go. The fit of the direction that they're going, right?
Yeah.
So that's my thing. Like, okay, is this a whole university moving in a direction for the
I think you have to be careful, right? If occasionally you'll get the leader or leaders where, okay, we can build around. Other times the structure is in place and the people that you hire have to fit within that structure. Nebraska is so in flux. I'm not sure they knew the chicken or the egg. Do you know what I mean?
Go.
So
I know exactly what you mean.
So I can be a good fit for some place and leadership may change and I'm no longer a fit, or a leader can be in place and I could be a good fit for that leader and it may not map out with the institution either. Like, you have to give it a little time for all parts to be congruent. That you know what I mean?
Coming up next, we've got Matt Coatney, play-by-play voice for women's Nebraska women's basketball here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. We are joined now by the play-by-play voice for women's college basketball for Nebraska, Matt Coatney. Matt, how are you this morning?
You know, it is hard to follow up an hour in which Kent Pavelka started it, so I'm going to have to bring my A game today. Usually I kind of mail it in with you guys. So I'm going to have to try today. Okay?
Well, I appreciate that.
Coach, I was on pins and needles because I never know what barb he's going to shoot my way, right? It's like, oh gosh, I feel some snark coming. It's coming. He was fantastic. And I'm so happy for you guys. And you've been here before, and Coach Williams has had success, but given the trajectory of this season and how it started and the injuries, and, you know, I'm joking with you that you got home before I did from a flight in Wyoming versus me coming home from a game. If you remember those days,
oh yeah.
This has to be, I mean, are you in your feels yet, or are you just like, man, this is business. We still got a task ahead of us.
I'm in my feels, absolutely. I mean, I really was not in my feels after losing to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights at home back middle of the conference season, and I really kind of wonder where this season was going. But I think it's the mark of Amy Williams' team that they can compartmentalize bad things and really focus on things. The run they're on right now is really, really something. And you see how they competed in that Big Ten championship game, taking Iowa to overtime. But not only that, playing 4 games in 4 days. One of the things that Amy Williams makes sure is that she plays a lot of players so her team is fresh at this time of the year. And I think that's really been an advantage down this last several run of games that Nebraska is playing at their best right now.
How about that? We talked to her Friday, and she said, she's like, Damon, we kind of rolled the dice early, and I could have played Jazz Shelley, 37, 38 minutes, but, there were the Potts and the Nisleys, and, after we lost Weideman, I wanted to build for the long haul. And I just felt like, gosh, that's easy to say now and kind of low-key back pat. But she went through it real time that had us kind of asking questions like, ooh, which way is the compass pointed? And to see it pay off is pretty spectacular.
Well, especially as you brought up, the injury to Allison Widener could have been devastating to this team because so much was expected of Al. What she really gives Nebraska that they were missing early on was somebody who was an elite defender and could come off the bounce on the wing. And maybe this team is still missing that player who consistently can get to the rim, draw contact. Jazz Shelley's done a little bit more of that in the postseason. But Amy Williams has been remarkably consistent in player development. I think Callan Hake is one of the most improved players in the Big Ten. She took 5 charges in the Big Ten tournament.
100%.
And the only way she did that during her freshman year is if her parents upped her limit on her credit card. I mean, she really has improved her defense exponentially. You can go right down the line and see the improvement. Logan Nisley was a quality defender during the Big Ten tournament. And she was a 13th grader coming in, good long-range shooter, but, you had to play defense, offensive substitutions late in the game with her, no longer late in the season. So I applaud Amy Williams and what she's done in player development this year.
We're talking with Matt Coatney, play-by-play voice for Nebraska women's basketball. Matt, as you kind of look ahead to this matchup with Texas A&M, I'm sure you've started digging into the nitty-gritty of it all. What are some things that you like in terms of what Nebraska might be able to do against the Aggies?
Rebounding, Texas A&M is known as a good rebounding team, but Nebraska's numbers are better. I think A&M's length is going to bother Nebraska a little bit, but I think the thing that Nebraska may have a little bit of an advantage of is in the backcourt. India Rogers is a fantastic point guard. She's taken the tour. We saw her actually when she played for USC as a freshman in a tournament in Las Vegas. Then she went to Oregon, ironically, where Jazz Shelley came from. But she missed 6 games at the end of the season, and they lost 5 of those. They're a different team with India Rogers. Probably the only reason A&M got in the tournament was they won a game in the SEC tournament with Rogers back, and they effectively knocked out Mississippi State. So I think Nebraska will have a little bit of an advantage in the backcourt. It's going to be tough up front. Markowski and Potts are going to have to do a really good job on Lauren Ware, 3 years at Arizona, and a really sizable defender on the inside. And I just absolutely love the game down low of Janiah Barker. She's 6'4".
Yes.
The difference, A&M doesn't shoot the ball from long range very well. So I think Nebraska has an advantage on the perimeter. Huskers have to knock down shots. I mean, that sounds like duh. But, if you're out beyond the perimeter, Nebraska, they're at their best when they're knocking down threes, and that's going to be a key. And I think they can do that against this A&M team.
Yeah, it's interesting too, Coat, because I get it, right? Make or miss league. But if Nebraska takes care of the ball, right? Because that's where it starts with making. If they can kind of not have their offense pushed out too far away and they can just get some shots up, I get the sense that they're going to be okay. How do you feel about just valuing the basketball going into this one?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, DB. And one of the reasons I think Nebraska will be able to do it is they've seen some of the toughest pressure you're going to see in women's basketball. It starts with Ohio State, who they sell out in the backcourt. They don't really want to play half-court defense. And, they basically ran Nebraska out of the gym. But then playing a Michigan State team and Maryland in the conference tournament, they also like to disrupt you and dismay you. And the Huskers didn't really have a problem with it. I also say this in the postseason. You go through these conference games. Nebraska played Iowa 3 times. They played Purdue 3 times. Every school has a scout on you in conference based on tendencies and previous games. Then you get to the postseason, and while A&M is spending hours and hours, like Nebraska is, getting ready for this game, it's just a different scout because you don't know all the tendencies. And a lot of times you can play a little freer and easier because the other team doesn't know your whole play sheet. I mean, there was some plays that Purdue ran that I was calling out the plays on the radio. You see them enough. You're like, oh, here comes head tap. They're going to set a ball screen and dive cut. So, I think that Nebraska, getting to your point about not turning the ball over, if the other team is still trying to figure out what you're trying to do, sometimes it moves. The flow is a little easier, and you see that sometimes early in the postseason.
Matt, we look at the kind of individuals on this Nebraska team. Obviously, Markowski, Shelley, Potts, the 3 players in double figures get a lot of the headlines in terms of who's the most impactful. But as you look, you mentioned how deep this team can go.
Yeah, Hake, Nisley.
As you look at some of those other players like Hake and Nisley and White, who do you see as someone that might be an X factor in this NCAA tournament game? Maybe somebody that Texas A&M won't have a great scout on because they haven't seen them before and their numbers don't pop out the way some of the other players do.
Darian White. This is a player,
yes,
5th-year player who transferred from Montana State. She's going back to the same region of the country that she's a native of Boise, Idaho. I think she'll have a lot of fans there. Had a kind of a minor knee injury late in the season, and she's not been in the starting lineup. This is it for Darian. She came here to play in this tournament. And, I think that when we talk about ball security, she becomes very, very important in spelling our guards in the backcourt, giving Jazz Shelley a little bit of a rest, or whether it be Logan Nisley or Kendall Moriarty. So, and here's the other thing. When Darian is healthy, she can get to the hole. She can dribble, penetrate, get into the lane, and she's an elite defender. And that's another reason I think Nebraska has an advantage on the perimeter. So look for Darian White, I think, to be an X factor.
That's funny. I couldn't agree more, and it's not just because I like working with you, but I'm gonna take it one step further here, Coach. Not only do I think she's the X factor, like it seems like she's just starting to sea legs is not the term, but it seems like she's just now starting to kind of get back into the rhythm athletically too, right? This could be a really good time to start to hit stride again, getting back to earlier season form.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, DB. And I think Annie Williams should be applauded for, the moves she made when Darian got hurt to insert Logan Nisley in the lineup. That spreads the floor a little bit more, gets the defense away from Markowski. But then when Darian comes in, she's probably had to learn a different role over the last 6 to 8 games of how to come in off the bench and play with those different rotations. But also, I think her knee is more stable than it was a month ago. So I couldn't agree more. I think she right now is, and we've seen that in the Big Ten tournament. She showed flashes of what we saw earlier in the season. So I'm really excited to see what she can do.
That's Matt Coatney. He is the play-by-play voice for Nebraska women's basketball.
Real quick, Coach, how are you packing? Like, I gotta know, man. You're kind of an odd duck. What are we doing here? Are you prepared for a long stay?
Well, we're going to play 2 games, I think. So I'm absolutely prepared to play Texas A&M. So I'm going with a blue sports jacket and gray sports jacket, 4 different colors of tan.
Let's go.
That way for the media press conferences, and one big bag that I stuff everything in. And so I'm ready to go. I'm staying for the whole thing.
Hey, Corvallis isn't ready for you, Coach. I know that much.
Just make sure none of those combinations include maroon. You don't want to look goofy like Trev did yesterday.
Oh, stop. He's still mad, Coach.
Matt, we appreciate
Safe travels, boss.
Hey,
You got it.
That's Matt Coatney. He's the play-by-play
You're a
voice for
child.
Nebraska. You know it, Nebraska women's basketball. We'll talk to somebody who's just as petty as me. Coming up next, Steve Sipple. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And we are joined now by one Stephen Mercutio Sipple from Husker Online. Sip, how are you this morning?
Mercutio. What is that?
He's a character from Shakespeare.
Yeah, Romeo and Juliet. You know,
I'm not particular.
You know, Sip, that love story. The Romeo and Juliet, that love story.
You got to be careful here because your fiance may not actually be dead.
I think that was high school. Now listen to Shakespeare. I don't think that was even college. Anyway, how are you guys?
I was trying to come up with an interesting M name for you. You know how I used to back in the day when we all led different lives, but I missed on Mercutio. That's fine. I'll try something else different.
Sip, I'm only gonna ask you this because I know you'll say no if it's what you really feel. But have you missed me?
What do you think?
You're like no.
What do you think? Absolutely not.
You haven't really had anybody to harass you, ask you any tough questions. Like, you've been on easy street, man. How you been?
That's a good way to put it. I've been on easy street. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Yeah, Robbie, I do remember when you do that. You had some effective middle names for me.
Yeah, I think Montgomery was my favorite.
Oh my God, that was good. That was the one that I guess either of my parents are listening. I don't want to, but man, I would have loved that, Montgomery, and I just probably would have went by Montgomery.
All right. Before we get to the hard-hitting stuff, will you take your own bib with you to keep food off your shirt during regionals?
No, I don't have a bib. I have to.
I could just see you walking around with sauce on your shirt.
Yeah, it's like the old McKeever.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, that guy is awesome.
Sip, I gotta say, if I hear that you went down to Memphis and the only barbecue you got was the baby back ribs from Applebee's, we're gonna have some words, okay?
I had a good line one time. I looked at him and said, "Do I got food on my face?" And he said, "No more than usual."
Hey, but listen, let's not go too far back. Let me start with this morning, because I think we kind of felt it was coming with the closed session or the executive session coming up with the Board of Regents. We knew that was a thing this week. Level of surprise that they will name a priority candidate.
I'm pretty surprised. I mean, that all happened. Yeah, it all happened pretty quickly. I mean, it's dragged out over 200 plus days, but since Trev left, things have flipped into motion pretty fast. Maybe that's what happens when the governor issues a call to action. People respond. I guess. I don't know if that's exactly why it's happening, but I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised.
All right, you're a historian, so you're really a good guy to ask this question. In your opinion, why do you think it has been so hard to uniquely position the chancellor, the presidency, and Nebraska football athletics as like this singularly focused entity? Like, what has made the degree of difficulty so difficult for that three-headed monster, in your opinion, over history?
Well, some of it's just ineptitude. I mean, there's just been some poor.
Okay.
Well, there was. I mean, there was poor leadership going. I mean, I think Harvey Perlman knew what he was doing as an academic administrator. He's an academic. I mean, he's a trained lawyer, and he's very good at it. But he didn't. As far as athletics go, he was notoriously poor. He hired, it was a very damaging time. We're still, in a sense, recovering from it. I mean, I thought Sean Eichhorst he proved to be an ineffective leader. Those are a couple of examples. So I think a lot of it's that. And now, it's sort of interesting, the whole discussion, and it's particularly interesting right now because we're in this moment of time where we're going to hire a president. And we have identified it as important for the athletic department. And I have vacillated on that more recently than I used to. I used to be that person that would say Nebraska needs its chancellor and its president and its AD and its head coach to be on the same page. I don't know. I mean, maybe it does and maybe it doesn't. If you have a really effective head football coach, he doesn't need to be on the same page with everybody, just as long as he's doing well. Tom Osborne, I talked to Tom about that the other day. He didn't worry about what was going on in the president's office or what the chancellor thought. If he did his job, if you do your job, everything will be all right. I've overthought it probably a little bit over the years. I can't really say why. I think they all need to be aligned. Seems like a good thing. But at the end of the day, if everybody's doing their jobs, you don't necessarily all have to be on square one. Damon, you played at a time when Bill Burnham and Tom Osborne weren't always.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, they didn't. It didn't matter. You had a great. Well, but now.
It ultimately did matter, though. It didn't matter for football, but it mattered for Byrne.
It did matter, but as far as results go, I don't think it mattered.
You're right. Let me ask. So, Sip, is this a blessing or a curse that Nebraska athletically and in, as you would say, particular football operates the way that it does for a president? Is it daunting because it's this freestanding entity, or is it really good because you don't have to really micromanage that? Like, how would you look at how Nebraska's athletic department is positioned if you're a new president?
Oh, how is it positioned from a president's point of view?
I mean, fiscally, it's pretty good. It can run itself. It's just, would you be willing to let it?
Yeah, I think you would if you have the right AD.
Okay.
and I didn't, here's the thing. I've been critical of Trev leaving and his decision to leave, but Trev was the kind of AD that you could just let him do his thing pretty much. Now, there was the stadium renovation project, which, the president's ultimately going to have to be involved in that. A lot of people are going to have to be involved heavily in that. But Trev, on a day-to-day basis, was an example, a really good example of an AD that could handle the business. He did handle it. So I think it's incumbent on the president to put a AD in there that you don't have to micromanage, and have a head coach that you don't have to micromanage, that you don't have to manage. That's the ideal situation. Now, is it realistic? I do think it's realistic. I don't know at Georgia how often the president and the chancellor have to get involved with Kirby Smart. Now as I'm saying it, they've had a rash of strange speeding ticket issues and a lot of just driving problems, oddly enough. But I don't know. So that wasn't the best example. I just exist in my world. I never worried about management. I didn't even know who the hell they were most of the time, so I didn't care.
But I just wonder sometimes, like, do they look at this behemoth over there on one stadium drive and think, well, they think they're too good? Sometimes I just don't always think the position is appreciated for what it is. Sometimes it's viewed more of this, like, big bad bully on campus.
Oh, the football coach.
Yeah.
And the AD.
Yes.
Oh, I think Harvey Perlman thought that way, and to the detriment of the athletic department. And listen, that's not a unique opinion.
I know that's why I'm saying, like, if we want to get it right, how would you view it? Is it a strength, or is it something where you like, I don't know, we better keep them in check? I mean, Penn State and Baylor happened, and those are extreme examples. But I do think that's why presidents and chancellors are more in tune with want a fingerprint with what's going on with athletics.
I like what Nebraska did with Carter and Trev. I thought it was a good setup where they changed the structure. Nebraska changed its management structure to have the AD, a very capable AD, report to a very capable president, and that would be the structure that would be the most effective to me. I hope that's what happens for Nebraska's sake. That you get a strong president and a strong AD, and the AD reports to the president, but the president doesn't have to micromanage. The AD is strong, capable on a daily basis, and the president can focus his attention on more important things.
We're talking with Steve Sipple from Husker Online. Sip, I'm kind of processing this in real time as you're talking about how, you used to think maybe the structure was more important, and then you kind of went to, if you got the right guy, you've got the right guy. It kind of reminds me of a conversation that DB and I had about quarterbacks and how it's a lot more situational dependent for most guys than we maybe give it credit for. But when you get the franchise guy, that's usually pretty apparent also. You get CJ Stroud in Houston in a place that looked like a dumpster fire, and all of a sudden he looks like that's a really good job. You get Bryce Young in Carolina in a place that is a dumpster fire, and you go, that guy might need a little more help. Is it just easier if everything's aligned to get it right because you don't have to have this generational talent or this super head coach, because you can get away with a guy that's just pretty good because the rest of the scenario is good for him?
Are you talking now? Are we just talking about a quarterback situation or
no?
Or now
so I'm talking about the head coach still. Sorry, that got a little confusing. Still talking about the head coach, but I'm kind of using an analogy with the NFL head quarterbacks. Yeah,
I get it. Okay, Robbie, I get it. I default to rugged individualism. Just do your jobs. Do your jobs. I've gone more that direction as I've got older and not played all these psychological games where everybody's got to be aligned and I don't even know what that means anymore. I just want a head coach to do his job. Do your job. AD, do your job. And do it effectively every day. We're humans, so there's gonna be mistakes, there's gonna be hiccups, there'll be issues that come up because there's 300 people involved in football, so things are going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
But just, I think it comes down to individuals as much as anything. And that line of thinking has evolved over time, over 30 years of covering it. If you have, now I always hate to go to the Tom Osborne card because he was the best leader, best football leader I can imagine almost outside of Saban. So Tom just did his job. That's what he did. If he did his job, he's told me this. He told me it the other day. He figured everything would be okay. He didn't worry about Woody Varner or what was going on in the president's office, what the chancellor must be thinking, because he was doing his job. And that's, I think that's the way. I think Rhule's largely that way, although Rhule is very big picture oriented.
Oh, yeah.
And as he said yesterday, this is a critical time, and you have to get the right leaders in here. But he also said that, look, my priority is my team, and if he's winning, that takes. I mean, look, we all know it. We all know how it goes. If you're winning, it just smooths over a lot of issues.
Sip, I want to go back to Rhule on what he said yesterday in his presser. Did you?
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like that gave a lot of the fans in the state a kind of a breath of fresh air, a little bit of an uplifting moment after the course of the last week. How did you receive that press conference in general, where maybe he didn't say a ton of stuff that was new, but seemed like he said a lot of stuff that people needed to hear?
Bona fide leader. I mean, I thought it was a leadership moment. I think he clearly recognized the gravity of the situation and kind of has seems like he has a good handle on the pulse. And it was fascinating to me. I mean, I say this all the time. I write it all the time. There's no guarantees that he's going to be effective as a head coach here. There's none. We don't know. He was pretty good last year. You hope it's better this year. But there's one thing about Matt Rhule that I 100%. And I understand it. He's a good leader. I mean, he's a leader. He's interested in leading. Not all head coaches are as interested as some in leading. He's interested. He leads. He was leading yesterday. That's what he was doing. He was kind of leading the entire university yesterday. And a head football coach at Nebraska, sometimes you're in that position. I thought he was in that position and he handled it remarkably well. I thought he did calm the waters. I think this fan base needs to be told sometimes that whatever head coach it is, that they want to be here. They're not necessarily looking to leave. We are at the end of the day a flyover state. We are a little bit insecure, I think, in some ways. We've been beaten down pretty hard by losing now. So yeah, I think what he said resonated really well, and I just thought it was an example of Matt Rhule being a good leader.
Sip, when you're kind of ramping this up for spring ball as it starts next week, if not quarterback, then what for you as you're looking at some key pieces?
Okay, that's a good question. I'd say inside linebacker. I like the guys they got, though. I'm not as like when people talk about it. I don't talk about it with as much concern as some do. I like those guys, Jab and Wright. I think that guy they brought in from Syracuse has promise. I like Bullock. I think those guys played a lot, and it was get Bullock back. And I love Jab and Wright. I love his length. I love his athleticism. He can make plays. I just think that he'll get better. If not, then I would say running back. I'm interested in the position. I'm interested in what Rhule said yesterday when he identified it as one of the most talented positions on the team in terms of depth. You're not going to see Gabe Ervin, but I like Gabe Ervin. I like him. I'm not suggesting he's an all Big Ten back. I like that kid from Minnesota, and he came on. I think he's all right.
So can I say this, because you just said that it's the easy softball. I'm surprised more people didn't like him, because I do. I think he's a good back, but people kind of poo-pooed him a little bit for what I think he's capable. I was just a little taken aback about people not being super high on his progress last year.
I thought he made progress. What I would say, not just about him, just about anybody, what you're looking for at Nebraska is a Quinton Judkins or a Travion Henderson. Fine is fine. I mean, I want something better than fine.
Fine is fine. That's a T-shirt, Sip.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a mindset at Nebraska that's developed sort of quietly, but it's like, well, he's good. Well, good. Gets you 6-6 or 5-7 and 4-8. You need some eye poppers, and that position hasn't had one in a while now. Like you go back down there, you're going back pretty far, right? I mean, how about a guy that can get you 1,600 yards? How about that? How about a guy that gets 1,600 yards back-to-back years? I mean, that's almost unimaginable right now. But that's where you got to go. That's where you got to go find. I like Rhule because he's of that mind. He went and got 2 receivers that have numbers. Now, Naylor hasn't played for 2 years, but he had 12 touchdowns at Wyoming in 1 year. 12 touchdowns in a year tells me a lot about it. Banks' numbers. Those are guys more in line with what you have to have here. If you really expect to be serious about finishing in that top 4 of the Big Ten.
Sip, you mentioned you kind of like the inside linebackers a little bit better than maybe most do at this point. Is there another position group that you're kind of low-key high on as we head into spring?
Well, Matt mentioned the secondary, just full of talent. I mean, there's so many guys back there that you almost forget when you're going through them all. It's a talent. It's a deep and talented group of guys. I mean, getting Buford back. Now you got him back last year for the final 4 games, but I mean,
he was just kind of a shell of what he's going to be, though. I agree.
Thank you, Damon. And he can be real. I mean, I've always liked Tommy Hill, but Tommy Hill, I mean, he's got another level you want to see him get to. I think Singleton can really play. I think he can really play. Gifford, God, see, this is what I mean. Forget, I mentioned Gifford before. Those are players. Those are guys you really can rely on. Hartsock, a guy you can really rely on. He'll probably get pressed now. I mean, this will be a good spring for Hartsock. He's going to get pressed. Listen. Matt said it yesterday. I really like his level of candor and his level of honesty. He said, one thing we've done is put together a roster with a lot of talent. Not a bad roster. Pretty good.
Wait,
right.
He said it with a lot of what?
It has a lot of talent. He said, one thing we've done well is put together a roster with a lot of talent.
Did you say candor?
I said candor. He's honest. He's very honest.
I've always kind of operated on the Costa Rican clock.
He said with a wait. I had to go back. Candor. Is that like some moon or planet in Star Wars?
No, that's Endor.
I drove there shirtless.
All right.
You wonder why he doesn't talk to us very much.
Well, I'm like, I thought this was Bizarre World. Am I the only one that heard that? Am I the only one that heard that?
But yeah, he also said that the coaches are giving the players the gift of high expectations, which is beautiful. I mean, I love that stuff.
Yep.
I just love it because they're pretty good. It's a pretty good roster.
You got to go get it, don't you?
Yeah,
we were talking about earlier, Sip, that we like how he's not hedging, right? It's easy.
No.
It's easy to be like, oh, we like some of our guys. We got some more development to do. No, he just said, hey, we've put together a good roster, right?
No,
like he's not hedging his bets at all.
No, Rhule doesn't hedge. I mean, I would really be. I think it'd be really interesting to be around him on a day-to-day basis. is see how he operates, because he doesn't hedge. He's a leader. That's what I say it all the time about him. They have a leader over there. Now, again, we'll see how that works out on the football field on Saturdays. But he's very interested in that part of it, and that's where it should start.
That's our guy, Stephen Montgomery Sipple.
A lot better than Marcusio.
Listen, I gave it a shot. I was first time we talked to him in a little while. I thought I'd shoot my shot. I missed.
Wow.
Okay, it happens.
I don't even saying you missed, Ravi. I don't know that you missed. I just hadn't heard.
I like Malik.
Well, it's Stephen Malik Sipple.
Yeah.
I like it. I
Don't
like
mind
it.
that. Hard to top Montgomery though.
We'll keep. I'm going to keep trying though. I think I hit you with a Moses one time, but we'll figure it out. We'll get it done.
All right, Sip. Don't walk around. Don't walk around with a messy mouth. Make sure you dap the corners and check your shirt.
Yeah. And, I've always said too, with your hands, wipe them on your socks. Nobody knows.
Sip, we appreciate it. Hopefully, we will catch up again
Thanks,
soon.
Sip.
All right.
All right, see you guys.
That's Stephen Moses Sipple here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Coming up next, we've got a lot to catch up on. I don't even recognize what we're doing here. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. This is Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're also on KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Speaking of being all in, we've been all in on our Omaha Supernovas as well. They had a great win over the weekend against the Orlando Valkyries, a 3-1 win. They will be back at home a week from Thursday. Got a little break here. They were going fast and furious there for a minute in the beginning of the month of March. Got a little break here until next Thursday when they'll face the Grand Rapids Rise right here at your CHI Health Center, 7 p.m. first serve. Make sure you get to supernovas.com for schedule, tickets, and merch. That is supernovas.com. Some local news here that we haven't got to yet today, but is a fairly big deal. One Frankie Fidler, who had 20 points per game this year for the Omaha Mavericks.
We just talked to Frankie a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Hit the F2 button.
Yeah, he's in the transfer portal now.
I'm portaling.
Where do you think, like, level wise? I'm not asking you to speculate where he's going.
St. John's.
Okay. You want to play for Rick Pitino?
Yeah, something like that.
Like a big time coach?
Yeah, his offer list is pretty substantial
already.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's going to basically have his pick of high major basketball.
Yep. I do think he knows he's going to make good money, but I think he wants to play in March. I think he wants to play meaningful basketball in March.
And I'm guessing give himself an opportunity to play at the next level.
Yeah, well, I think at some point he figures the one thing I really, really like about him is very humble start for Frankie, right? Wasn't always easy. So I'm not so sure how important like the payday is for him. I think he loves playing basketball.
It was to prove everybody wrong.
And he's never been a high maintenance guy. He's kind of just done his thing. And I think you'll continue to kind of see that be a theme with his personality.
Is he a chip on the shoulder guy?
Well, he stays with it.
Because that's kind of the vibe that I've gotten from you telling me about him, from seeing him. He seems like
from day one.
I'll show you.
Yep.
Right? Like, oh, you didn't think I was this good coming out of high school? I'll show you.
Yeah, that's totally.
Oh, you don't think I can play at a high major level? I'll show you.
Yep.
And that's why I asked about the playing at the next level opportunities, whether that's overseas, whether that's NBA.
Yeah, I think as long as he's getting paid to play, I mean, obviously he wants to be, an NBA guy.
Everyone wants to go to the NBA, right?
But if he can make a living playing basketball and continue to work on his craft, like that's his jams. But I mean, he'll have his. Now I think he needs a kind of a certain style. It needs to be pretty free flowing.
Fit's pretty important for him.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, and do you wonder at all?
He had a lot of freedoms at Omaha.
Yes. Well, and he had to, right? He was They needed.
So if you want to
him-
continue to accentuate his strengths,
yes, they needed him to be that guy.
Can I say accentuate, or is that too
Accentuate?
Is that too simple?
Well, as long as you say it with some decent candor, I think you're okay.
Yeah, the stress syllables for him,
Man, that dirt looks amazing.
particularly.
It's all right. No, I wonder. So you don't think he's staying local here?
No,
Because that's the assumption everybody makes. And I'm
Which
not asking
is
you to
what,
betray
like
anything.
Nebraska?
Nebraska or Creighton.
No, Creighton, I don't think has any interest.
Yeah, I don't know that it makes any sense.
It doesn't really fit what they do.
And also, you've got Jackson McAndrew coming in. You've got
I don't.
Mason Miller here still.
I don't think it
You've got
behooves
Trout.
Creighton.
I just don't know that there's minutes for
And
him.
depending on what happens with CJ Wilcher, I don't think Nebraska would be in the bidding market for a guy that may not be in your starting lineup.
Yeah,
because Nebraska's not in a position of need. They need
point guard.
They need a point guard.
They need a real point guard.
Yeah. So
a traditional point guard. Real is probably not how I wanted to say that, but
yeah,
traditional point guard.
A primary distributor,
primary ball handler, a guy that you can feel really comfortable with the ball in his hands in crunch time.
Sure.
I know a guy like that.
Yeah, but he's not Portland.
Not yet.
And they're
playing pretty well right now.
He is.
He is, and so are they.
Yeah, he's starting to really hit stride.
They absolutely lose that game on what was it?
But he could potentially be interesting.
He certainly could.
By he we mean one Chucky, don't call me Charles Hepburn.
It's weird because I've never called him Charles before, and I just about called him Charles Hepburn.
Well, you're maybe thinking a little Heston too.
Yeah, I was. It's Charles Heston, Charlton.
Charlton Heston.
Yeah,
he came to speak to our team once in Lincoln.
Really?
Yeah, before
Charlton's not a name you hear a lot anymore.
Was it before Oklahoma? And we're like, oh man, Moses. Right, because it's like 93 or something.
You give him like a holy Moses.
And we're not super smart yet. And I'm 50 and I'm still not super smart now. But I was like, oh my gosh, I know that guy. He played Moses.
Wasn't he the Planet of the Apes guy too?
Yeah, but I wasn't.
Yes, he was.
Oh, Shane was quick on that one.
So full disclosure though, Shane walked me through the whole Planet of the Apes thing. Do you remember that about a handful of years ago? Because I'm a big Planet of the Apes guy. Like,
okay, what do you got?
And Shane, like the takeover and the slowly assimilation, and like I knew none.
Are you into the new ones?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
You
you didn't watch the old school ones.
No.
Okay.
I didn't really know the story, right? I'm just watching.
You're just watching a movie.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But Shane gave me the backstory. Air that.
Joel says, "Oh, I mean, what do they do with Ulyss? Is he playing next year?"
So, I mean, do you wait on Ulyss?
I don't know. That's why. I mean, I really don't know. I constantly forget he's on the roster.
Not if you can upgrade.
Yeah, that's fair. But he's the guy that they thought was going to be.
I'm not sure what they do with Lloyd or any of these other guys, though. But
that's a fair question. TK says, "No DB, no DB. We need the Fidler in Lincoln."
I would. Hey,
you take him, right?
I mean,
but you don't know what.
Pretty much have a man crush, right?
Situation.
But I would want what's best for Frankie, not what's best
may not
for
be Nebraska.
It's not what's best for me.
Yeah. So you think he looks for a place where he can have a prominent role, prominent fit, probably not locally here. That's okay.
Yeah.
You just want him to
I don't see it.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, it's like,
especially with what I think he could make.
Yeah. I think he might be. Well,
I mean, I could see Nebraska maybe going there for a bona fide starter, but it has to fit. Like they need the room.
Yeah. And I don't know what we don't know yet what their roster looks like. Let's get to Bob here. Wants to talk about Sip and Trev. I wasn't doing that just to troll. I just can't talk. Let's get to Bob on the hotline here. Bob, what's going on?
Hey guys, with all due respect, is Sipple a super gremlin? I only say that because he has some insights that are just they make you go, huh? I never thought about it that way. And then after you hear him explain, you're like, yeah, he's right. But
super gremlin and Sipple, that's it. I like that, but that may stick.
No, I'll leave you with this. Stephen Trev was talking about Husker Online interview he did before he left.
Yeah.
He said we're getting professionalized, referencing college football.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't really like, and I'll be the first one to say, I don't like that he left. But if we don't like these kind of things, is it only going to get worse in 5 years? So this is also the least it's going to be. I mean, it seems like in the NFL, people are leaving all the time. Transactions are happening mid-season. So I guess the future is unclear, but go Big Red. Thanks, guys.
I appreciate that, Bob. And, I think stability, it's funny he brings that up.
Mm-hmm.
He's got good timing because who doesn't like the transactional lifestyle? That would be one Coach Rhule.
Yeah.
Why did he hate the NFL?
Too transactional.
Too transactional.
Not enough relational.
So I think he would really like to try to see this settle in. And you know how I think he's trying to offset that?
How's that?
I've said this for 2 years now. I think he wants to make Nebraska a place, and this was Trev's thing too.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to make Nebraska a place that makes you feel so good about who you are
you don't want to leave.
That you don't want to leave. That's what they're trying. That's how you get Ty
offset.
Robinsons. That's how you get Nash Makers. That's how you get Isaac Giffords
to come back.
Yes,
that's how you offset the professionalism
and
of everything else.
Yeah. Ty Robinson didn't ask for one more penny.
And there is
now they may give it to him, but he didn't ask for it.
Well, it's like we heard with Tony White, right? They rewarded him after he decided to stay, not to get him to stay.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Can Nebraska make a living being a set aside, being non-transactional in 2024?
If it sets you apart in a positive way, I think you can make a living.
That's
like
the
that.
goal.
More Hurrdat Sports coming up next. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. You can hear us on Twitter, Facebook, and see us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And I want to see you at Warhorse Casino in Lincoln to make sure you're activating those entries that I've been talking to you about all month. If you're in the bracket challenge, you can make your picks through tomorrow online. Then you need to go to the Warhorse Casino in Lincoln and activate those entries so you're eligible for that $1 million prize. I would hate it if you had a perfect bracket and didn't win your $1 million. That would be a tragedy. Make sure you go validate those entries in person at the Warhorse Casino in Lincoln. And while you're at it, might as well get some entries in for the $100,000 prop card challenge as well. Get 18 or more of the 25 questions right, and you are eligible for cash and free play. You can get more entries on the prop card challenge through March 28th with a $50 sportsbook wager or 50 points earned on slots or racing. The prop card challenge is for the semifinals and finals of the tournament. That's Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. WarhorseCasino.com for full details.
Upon hearing that clip again, I forgot that upon Shane playing those clips, I forgot that buried in the lead, he used the term ethos.
Mm-hmm.
A Division I Power 5 football coach
use the term ethos.
And he'll do that from time to time, and it's like
kind of drop stuff in there on you.
There's power in the word,
mm-hmm.
right? It's like the principle, the guiding belief, the set apart,
mm-hmm.
like the distinguishing thing, the distinguishing character. He dropped ethos. And we're just so captivated and listening. I mean, there's plenty of smart people out there that know what he's saying real time. But I mean, if you don't, feel free to just go hit up Merriam or Webster or whoever. I don't know who.
Or Google.
Google.
Yeah.
For me, TikTok. I don't know if TikTok does the definitions. What am I going to do if they get rid of TikTok? Where am I going to get my recipes?
Where are you going to get all your information?
Certainly not in this big old head of mine. I don't have any idea. But he's telling you by telling you. It's up to you to believe the information or not.
Yeah.
But he's telling you.
The thing that I took away from that particular part right there.
What?
Particular part right there was.
Where would Sipple put that accent?
I don't.
Particular.
Particular.
Don't mealy mouth me.
Sorry, Sip.
Yeah, don't mealy mouth him, DB.
He said that.
I totally forgot what I was gonna say.
Ethos.
Yeah, no,
I feel like a penguin.
Him being here.
The part of that. Nope, it's gone.
So
Yeah.
let me go back to something real quick though. Remember when he said his wife scouted out Lincoln?
Yeah.
See if this was a place that she could live and what she liked. And then I told you, like that's really important, kind of like to settle down, and then the type of place that he bought and what's going on in Omaha and how he likes schools for his kids, and now that his kid's coming here. I'm not sure if you guys are like picking up the bird crumbs, but I don't think this is a place that he's interested in leaving.
Does not seem like a quick stop for him
anytime soon.
Like he's putting down roots.
I think Carolina happened at a very good time for him. It was humbling. It brought some things back into focus. I think he hates the transactional side of humans. I think he's an investor by nature. I think he enjoys the long game. And so sometimes timing is everything.
Yeah.
Right? If the NFL opportunity comes after Nebraska, it may be different. But it coming before Nebraska is uniquely important.
Well, and it I know a lot of people, and myself included, at the time when his name first got mentioned, there was a little bit of a hesitancy. You're like, there was his track record in college isn't that long. He's struggling in the NFL, until you actually get to like hear him and know him and listen to the way he operates. You could understand how it's like, well, he's just bouncing back and waiting for another opportunity. But then you hear the way he talks about the game and the things he believes, and you go, oh, no, NFL is just a bad fit for him.
Yeah.
And acknowledging, being able to have the self-awareness to say, that's not good for me. That's not good for what I like to do. Because there's probably a part of him before that just thought, oh, I can do what I do anywhere, right? We think that a lot of, if you're any good at your job, you probably think that on some level, right? Oh, I can do what I do anywhere.
I think a lot about that along those lines with like high school coaches. I've talked about this before. It doesn't really matter what the sport is. There's only a handful of guys and gals that I think can coach anybody.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of times when we look at what like accolades and accomplishments, sometimes it's specific to certain kinds of environments. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the kids that they're coaching. So I definitely think like that's
it's a thing.
It's a real thing.
Yes. It's a rare thing for people to acknowledge their own limitations, but I appreciate, again, that's one of the things I appreciate the most about Coach Rhule is he seems to know like this college is a better fit for him. And I know that, Trev seems to sort of bemoaning the transactional nature that college football and college sports in general are moving towards. It's not going to get less, Bob mentioned, it's not going to get less transactional as we move on, but that's what makes the relationships that much more important.
It will be interesting, though, to Bob's point. Will there be a breaking point in which we're no longer willing to do what it takes? Because right now we're playing in both worlds. We
As
still
Nebraskans?
We still want to talk about amateurism to some degree. To some degree.
Some people do, sure.
But we're not full-fledged. Well, do you know why you still have to talk about amateurism?
Because we're not paying them.
Well, you're paying them, but we don't have all the work components that come with being professionals.
Yes, you sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have one foot in each. We have some. We have more aspects than not that are professional, but we're not all the way there because we're not like if you really want to offset NIL and things like that and what people are making, put people on 1 or 2 year contracts, sign them to deals.
Yeah.
Form a union. See, we're not ready to all the way do that. So
well, not everyone is. Yeah.
So I'll still kind of play in the amateurism world. There might be a breaking point where we're not ready to fully commit all the terms that I just said and still play the game. Right. So maybe there'll be some return to the mean at some point.
Yeah.
Before it goes all the way left and you're watching the NFL and professional college football.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're closer to that already than maybe we want to admit.
But you're not fully playing the game.
Sure.
Because we haven't had the ramifications of what comes with that.
Yes. What
Right.
happens when you break a contract? What happens when
Paying taxes, getting cut.
Well, we're sort of dealing with the getting cut stuff already.
Not honoring folks' academic scholarships, putting people on real contracts, unionizing.
The real contracts are what's next.
Yeah, well,
I think, right? They're that's the next thing, because that's how you combat the transfer portal. Is, hey, we're going to sign you to a 2-year deal. You can leave after 2 years, but if you leave after 1 year, you're going to owe us money back.
Yeah, and at some point, the government, with all the money exchanging hands,
is going to
be more of a pivotal player.
Sort it out, or start to sort it out.
Do we want that?
I don't necessarily know, but someone is going to have to set the parameters.
Yeah, so I just say that
Yeah.
to say it may go that way for a while, and then it may return.
So
right?
Here's the
remember Napster and all those ways that we procured music.
Yeah.
Eventually, it came back to its.
But essentially, we still have the same system of. I mean, it opened the door to how we consume music now, right? It's a different thing, but it opened the door to how we now consume music, and that started.
Yeah, but it progressively got better, right?
It did. Yes.
Certain amount per song.
figured
Well,
it out.
this is free, or these artists
And
say
it's
you
not like a
can,
crowdsourcing.
and you can have your catalog. Like
yes,
it streamlined.
It did. It. But that's kind of what my point here.
And
is,
you can get a song without your whole.
Yeah, without your whole computer getting
Samsung 60 shutting down or whatever.
Or without your computer getting a virus or whatever, right? Because you're not downloading it from somebody else's computer. You're downloading it from servers but it's the same. It's the same sort of principle of this is how we listen to music now. It doesn't have to be a hard copy. It is a digital entity now. That is sort of what we're opening the door with professionalism in college sports. Is it's gonna look a lot different 10 years from now than it does today. But we just opened the door, and it's going to look more like it does today than it did 10 years ago, if that makes sense.
Like we'll move it forward before we come back.
And I don't know if we're going to come back. I do think it's going to get more sorted out.
We'll see who still wants to be coaching.
We'll see if doing it relationally when it is professional.
Can that work?
Will that still work? My tendency is to say yes. I think that works everywhere if you're good at it, but only time will tell. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back tomorrow here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.